Hello, my name is Krista Tweed, Applications Engineer with Hottinger Brewel & Care. The topic of this video is the auto range feature of the GenDAC hardware family. All modules in the GenDAC hardware family that have a B in their model number support the auto range feature. This feature was added to the hardware to allow the user to minimize the measurement uncertainty of their measurement, even when the test involves making measurements over a wide range. GenDAC modules always have a variety of spans available from which the user can select. If we take the GN310B power module as an example, the voltage channels of the module have 5 different spans available, ranging from plus minus 50 volts up to plus minus 1500 volts. The current channels of the power module can operate in either current mode or voltage mode. They have 7 different ranges for current measurements, which are typically used when current transducers are in use. And there are 9 different ranges for voltage measurements, typically when current clamps are in use. The 18 bits of the module's digitizer are distributed across the range selected for each channel. Having multiple ranges makes the instrument appropriate for use with a wide variety of measurements. But what about when you need to measure a wide variety of inputs during a single test? Motor mapping is one example of an application that often requires users to measure a wide range of inputs during a single test. During a motor mapping test, the device under test is run through a wide variety of torque and speed set points in order to evaluate the efficiency of the motor over its entire operation range. In many of these tests, the current will vary significantly over the course of the test. Having auto range active for these types of tests means that the power module can adjust the span of the current channels while the test is in process. This keeps the power analyzer operating at the optimal range throughout the test, allowing the operator to maintain accuracy. So how does a user turn on the auto range feature? First, the power analyzer must be running firmware version 8.00 or higher for the feature to be available. The first use case is when the user wants to have auto range always enabled. If you are using the ePower option within Perception, the auto range option is found at the end of the span list in the component setup panel. Double-click on a component in the ePower Suite sheet to open the setup panel. If you are using standard Perception, you will find the column to enable auto range in the input channel page of the settings sheet. Select the page appropriate to your input channel type to find the auto range column. Once auto range is enabled, the user is able to set the auto range time in the settings sheet. This is the time window over which the channel's input value is monitored to determine if the span needs to change. If the current span is found to still be valid, nothing is changed. If the input is operating in the top or bottom 10% of the span, an auto range will be performed. If the measured value is greater than 90% of the span is stepped up one range. If the measured value is less than 10% of the span is stepped down one range. While the span is being changed, data is not valid and therefore no data is recorded. If the user is making a continuous data recording, there will be a gap in the data during the adjustment period as shown in this example data. The adjustment takes approximately 500 milliseconds. If the user is making a sweeps recording, most input trigger types are not accepted while an auto range adjustment is taking place, and thus the user will not see a gap in the recorded data. However, if the GenDAC mainframe is integrated into a larger test cell and is being controlled by an automation system, the handshaking communication of trigger arm and trigger arm finished between the automation system and the mainframe prevents a sweep or set point from being missed by delaying the trigger until the auto range is complete. This is illustrated in the graphic. Note that the 3rd and 5th triggers received by the GenDAC mainframe are sent while an auto range is in process. The mainframe waits to record the sweep until the auto range process is complete. The one trigger type that can process through the system while an auto range is in process is the auto trigger. The auto trigger option is in the Acquisition Setup dialog. It allows the user to set a time period for an auto trigger. If no other trigger type has been received within the stated time interval, a trigger is automatically generated. If an auto range is in process when an auto trigger is generated, that sweep will be empty due to no valid data being available. The user can also command a channel to perform a one-time auto range based on the signal input at the time the command is received. The command is available in several locations. In the settings sheet, right-click on a channel and select Auto Range Now. If multiple channels are selected in the settings sheet, select Auto Range Now from the Settings menu to open a dialog. The auto range measurement time can be set to 1, 2, 5, or 10 seconds using the drop-down list in the dialog. Selecting the Auto Range Now button at the bottom of the dialog begins the measurement time for the selected channels. If a recorder or group row is active in the settings sheet when Auto Range Now is selected in the Settings menu, all channels of the recorder or group will have the auto range performed. The Auto Range Now command is also supported by the remote control options of CAN bus control, Perception RPC, and GenDAC API. This gives the user the flexibility to perform auto range when no critical data is being recorded. The command is available when the system is in any mode, meaning idle, preview, or record. If the system is in idle, selecting Auto Range Now puts the system into preview mode to perform the auto range and then returns the system to the idle state. This concludes my introduction to the auto range feature of the GenDAC hardware family. Please feel free to contact our technical support teams if you have questions.